Good afternoon. Sorry folks, this is going to be in English. I'll talk slowly. And for my own good, actually. So, I was going to be late this morning, actually. I thought I was going to be late because I had to get my kids dressed up and then to school in their costumes for their porn parties this morning. And my son, he wanted to be an ambulance. Now, not an ambulance driver, that wasn't enough. He had to be an ambulance. So I spent about 2 weeks working on this ambulance, and that taught me a lot of interdependent co-origination, because I had to rely on everybody to tell me what to do, especially the teachers who work with, creative stuff. And then I learned about emptiness, because how do you fit an ambulance in a car? If you want to do that, you'll discover emptiness. It actually does become nothing. And then from nothing comes something. That's the amazing thing. And it also comes, and the form becomes emptiness, and the emptiness becomes form again. And there you go. I don't know how they're going to get it home, because I have the car. So, but as we were going, this story does continue. As we were going, he got all excited when he looked outside and he saw another car coming to us, like past us, not at us. And it was coming on the other lane. And look at that car. It's actually this really big new Audi. I thought, it's already 8 years old and he's got expensive taste. And I said, yeah. So I didn't want to encourage it. Yeah, so it's a slinky. And you know what a slinky is? What do you call that? It's like a spring, a little toy, and it's made of rings. And so at the front of the Audi, there's 6 rings. So when he saw the car, he saw a slinky, which is this little toy of rings that you bounce. Yeah, it goes down the steps. Slinky. Sorry, I don't know.
We call it the thing that goes down the steps.
Okay. There you go. So now that we all know what we're talking about, and it was helpful for me, because it just reminded me that a lot of my projections and concepts and everything are just mine. They're just mine, and that car is, just as much a slinky as it is, an expensive luxury car. And it really depends who is looking at it and what your conditions are. And so it was helpful for me to have that lesson from him right before I came here. Because in a sense, I think it related to what Michael was saying with the cup and the milk, and emptiness doesn't mean it's empty of a cup, that there's no cup there, but it's pretty much empty of the concepts that we project onto it. So these things exist, but when you break it down, and it's not just that it breaks apart from the this microphone, in my English also, I'll just say the microphone into all its component parts. Yeah, that's one way of looking at interdependence, but also just the fact that it's empty of concept, meaning there's something that exists, but in the end, whatever use we have and whatever we can say about it is coming from us, not from the thing side. It's all coming from our side. And when we look around at the world, and it's all coming from us, all these ideas and concepts and everything. So that's again the tree and the shade. The person needs the shade because you called it shade, and it was good for you. So the idea came from you. The shade doesn't exist on its own side. It's all dependent. We're co-arising. So the shade needed you to call it shade. So sometimes what Zen I found in the teachings are pointing us to again and again is the problem is not that we have these concepts. The problem is that we take them very seriously, and we sometimes get stuck on these ideas, and especially on a moral level, like how we get stuck on ideas about each other and ourselves and things like that, and the world and the other, and that these concepts end up being a sort of barrier to interacting with the greater sense of freedom, and compassion, you could say. And getting stuck on concepts is one problem we have, the problem of form, and the other problem, though, the other risk, is getting stuck on non-concepts, the other extreme. In Zen, they call it the Zen sickness of getting hung up on emptiness. And whenever I hear emptiness, one of the three fires arises in me. The poison of aversion. I would say the sort of visceral reaction whenever the word emptiness happens, because I take very seriously that warning in Zen, what they teach against the Zen sickness of getting stuck on emptiness. And that's sort of why then people emphasize, no, it's not, Nagarjuna is not nihilistic. Because of that tendency to say, it means that, it's all empty and everything's an illusion. Again and again, what I've understood in the teachings is pointing to the way we relate to the world. Not so much about the world as it exists, but the way we relate in the term of how we use our concepts and our ideas, and how we take those as more important than the things themselves. And so, the question is, what do we do about that? What do we do about that? Well, in Zen there's this fundamental teaching called Shikantaza, which is translated as just sitting. And the just sitting means that you're dropping away any sort of ulterior motive, any intention to realize enlightenment or emptiness or anything like that. You're just doing it. You're dropping any concepts. And you want to have a sort of unmediated experience of what it means to be alive. Unmediated by all the sort of concepts and ideas that tend to separate us from ourselves and the world. Because we have all these ideas. And you can sit down and the first idea might come up that, I'm having good meditation because it's peaceful. Or I'm not having good meditation because I'm so distracted and there's so much noise. And again, what we're finding, what we're confronting, is not whether it's a good or bad meditation. We're simply encountering our ideas and concepts that are mediating it, and sort of interfering with our having a direct experience of what it means to be here. So Shikantaza means dropping that and just sitting. Forget these ideas for a minute. And when they come up and they arise, you notice them just as ideas. That's what the mind does. It creates these ideas. And so does emptiness mean that, I have a blank mind and I'm not having any ideas? Or perhaps that I see these ideas as a sort of continuum of cause and effect relationship, as the karma of my own life that's happening over and over and over again. And in a sense, I take it a little less seriously. So that's kind of being unstuck. And there's this, I want to, when I'm out reading The Very Hungry Caterpillar, I try to read some Dogen, and it's one or the other, either one. But there's a story. When Dogen was in China, he went to China for 3 years to train under some of the great masters of that time. And there's a story where he was in this famous Chinese monastery, and he saw on the wall was a painting of the famous Zen circle. Everyone knows that Zen circle. In fact, it's become like a trademark. If you want to sell something, put a Zen circle on it, and sales will increase. So, the Zen circle. But back then, it was kind of the original circle. This is the year like 1240. And he had never seen it before. Actually, the circle hadn't come to Japan yet. And he asked one of the Chinese monks there, well, what is that? That circle, what's the painting? And the monk said, it's Nagarjuna, sitting zazen. What? Everybody loves the Zen circle. But there's one person who doesn't. It's Dogen. Dogen does not love the Zen circle. He said, what? What do you mean that's Nagarjuna is sitting zazen? Oh yes, he's realizing emptiness of the mind. And anyone who would look at Nagarjuna in that meditation, because it was such a deep meditation, he was such an enlightened master, would just see the circle. Well, Dogen said, if you wanted to express Nagarjuna realizing emptiness, you should have painted Nagarjuna sitting zazen, not some circle. And he was pointing out his frustration at the Zen sickness that he was recognizing that time, that we turn emptiness into this great idea, and enlightenment into this idea that we're going to achieve something. One day I'll be free. I'll realize that circle in my mind. And he was saying, no, just sit. Just do what you do. And if that's not your emptiness, then what is? Dogen is very careful to emphasize a non-dual way. And non-dual meaning neither form nor emptiness. In the Heart Sutra, which most people are familiar with, is that form is emptiness and emptiness is form. Well, Dogen also doesn't like that, because in one of his, he paraphrases. He has a text in the Shobogenzo where he paraphrases the whole Heart Sutra. And at that seminal point, he says, actually, in the Heart Sutra it says form is emptiness and emptiness is form, but actually, it should go form is form and emptiness is emptiness. And he goes on, form is nothing but form, emptiness is nothing but emptiness. 100 blades of grass is 10,000 things. And they always say that in Zen, 100 blades of grass, 10,000 things. It just means the phenomenal world as it is. And he's trying to make the path of realizing emptiness really non-mystical and very sort of practical. Every blade of grass, every thing in the world, everything you're doing, it's not some sort of special circle painting on the wall. You should see that you're just sitting, or you're just pouring tea, or just... He has this advice to the Tenzo, the head cook, which is a wonderful text also in the Shobogenzo, where he gives this basic long talk of advice on how to cook. How to be the head cook. The head cook was a very important position in Zen monastery. It's kind of second to the abbot. And the fact that it's second to the abbot is reinforcing a message. And the message is that practical things matter. And that's the path. And that's how you realize this, big way, the great way. And in one of the sections of the Tenzo Kyodan, the advice to the cook, he writes, you should consider the water with which you rinse the rice as precious as your eyes, as your own eyes. And so there's even something that's wastewater, right? You have to consider this sense of practice with that is so important, so intimate that this sort of non-dual approach of realizing your connection and the importance of all these little things you're doing. But it doesn't stop there, because that would just make it sort of a personal path. And it's not just a personal path. It's also very interrelated. And so that he continues to reinforce and emphasize again and again how, and remember, you're cooking for the whole community and you're sustaining their practice as well. So there's seeing the wastewater that you rinse the rice or the vegetables or all that stuff as important as your own body, and also at the same time understanding that all these actions are for the greater good. In Mayan tradition, they have this, we sometimes term it the two truths of relative truth and absolute truth. And it sort of corresponds with the sense of form and emptiness in Heart Sutra, with the relative truth being the world of separation and all the sort of individuation that exists. that I can say it's all interrelated, but there's this microphone here that I'm actually using, and I call it such, and I can actually move it, and I can pour water in this cup, and I exist separate from you, and I'm talking right now, and you're not talking, and you're actually listening to me, and this guy's sitting beside me, and I'm sitting on a chair, and it all works because it is individuated on a relative level. And so the relative truth is the world according to use and concepts and skill. And then the absolute is sort of the total emptiness and interconnection of it all, and non-differentiation. Dogen's main point, though, and he does this also when he relates to zazen or sitting meditation, when he says, you don't practice, you don't sit zazen in order to become enlightened. Zazen and enlightenment are one. Zazen, practice is enlightenment. And it's an important statement of his. And he could say it's the same thing as when he says form is form. He says form is form, and he says in the 100 Days Rest, he says form is form because if I were to say form is emptiness, I'm still in a dualistic approach of seeing that there's this form I can talk about and this emptiness. But if I really feel like it's non-dual, I don't need to talk about emptiness or form. When I say one, the other is there. When I say the other is there. If I talk about form, I'm also talking about emptiness. If I'm talking about emptiness, I'm also talking about form. I don't need to say, oh yeah, and it's empty. That's redundant already. It's too much. I've said too much. Alright? Still, we get stuck. And it's not just us. The great masters get stuck. I'll give you an example. There is a Zen master who lived around the year 900. His name was Zwangsha Shibe. And he was visiting another monastery, walking. He was quite an advanced master. And he's walking on the road, and on the way up, he stubs his toe. And he stubs it really bad. Has that ever happened to you? It's happened to me. And it was bleeding. It was so bad. Probably broke it. And at that moment, he had a deep realization. He said, this body is empty. So where does this pain come from? Now, I really appreciate that, because we would have originally thought the realization was, oh, this body's empty. I've gone beyond pain. I'm free. Well, no. It's like, yes, I understand this body's empty, but still, I've got this very particular individual pain that is killing me right now. This is the paradox that we live in, that the absolute truth and the relative truth, the form and the emptiness, somehow are one, and in our experience, we are still very much dividing them. You know, we have times where we feel, okay, this great insight will come when I'm at deep ease and peace and quiet. And then I'll be able to let go of my thoughts, and I'll realize oneness. Well, he realized it in that sharp, sharp pain of breaking a toe on a stone. And it kind of connects with the Buddhist teachings of dukkha and of suffering, that it's not something we just transcend and leave behind, but it actually becomes our path of enlightenment. It's not like we're free, meaning we don't experience it. No, it means that we're free not to be defined by it, and not have our concepts of pain and suffering define us. So that's the freedom. It doesn't mean we stop, growing old, getting sick, and dying. Of course, that's going to happen. So freedom of suffering must mean something else, which involves that emptiness. And this is what the master, when he stubbed his toe, is sort of pointing to. The experience of emptiness and of freedom and of non-duality is just that. It's an experience. It's not a concept. So don't mistake the moon for the finger pointing at it. As this old Zen saying goes, that sometimes the talk on emptiness can serve to make it more dual in our own lives. And so we have to pay attention to that and be careful and come back to sort of the simplicity. And this is what I appreciate when Michael was saying it. It is a simple awareness, but simple is not the same as easy. Because we have a lot of conditioning, which is very much wanting to live dualistically. And not to accept the fact that, yeah, there is pain. And while I experience the pain, I can be free of it. While I experience it, it doesn't mean I don't feel it. It means that my concepts no longer define the pain for me. That I'm free not to be defined and enslaved by all the concepts that run my life up to now. And that's an experience of emptiness, which is emptying the concepts. And we do that, we start not right when we stub our toe. Because first of all, this master, he probably did a lot of zazen before that toe stubbing happened. And the toe stubbing happened at the right time for him. If it happened the day before, he probably would have been, damn. But we can start a little easier, and that's with our shikantas that are just sitting. Dogen later on in the Mountains and Rivers Sutra, it is really beautiful sutra, just poetic, very poetic. He brings back this idea of kind of getting stuck on ideas in relation to water. And he said that for some, for heavenly beings, water is jewels. And for people, it's drink. And for fish, it's a palace, it's their home. And for hell beings, it's pus and blood and urine. He goes on that route with discussing water and how it's not just that one thing is made up of component parts, but that it doesn't even have a fixed concept according to each person who views it and each being. So it's another way of understanding how our concepts are very relative, very relative. And the absolute reality or the emptiness of it is not something we can define. It's really not something we can define. So when we let go of definitions, then we open ourselves up to an experience that is non-dual. And it's important to do that. It really is. And it's important to train to do that, because it makes us much more flexible and, I think, open to just reality as it is. That's shikantaza, that's the practice of zazen, of just sitting. It is again and again, recognizing those concepts arising and not getting stuck with them. And noticing that all these concepts and all these definitions are coming out of yourself and your sense of self. They're not coming from the world. The cup is not telling me, I'm a cup. Sorry. I tell the cup. And everybody else who they are. Which sometimes works if it's skillful, and if it's not, it hurts. So, by recognizing that it's coming from us, we can work on making it help more and hurt less. And that happens in the training when we notice more what's going on. How long have I run on here?
Whenever you feel ready.
When I feel ready, that's kind of ambiguous term saying time is closing.
Time is also take your time.
With no definition.
Yeah. One thing I want to share with you, I'll just read something from Master Dogen. Before I read Master Dogen, I'll read one thing from the third patriarch. So, 2 things. The third patriarch of Zen, who lived around the year 600, Zen-san, and he wrote a poem called the Faith in Mind poem. And it really talks about emptiness and the problem we have with it. And I just want to read a couple of verses. The great way is not difficult. Just don't pick and choose. Cut off all likes and dislikes, and it is clear as space. Let me skip ahead of that. Outside, meaning when you're in the outside world. Don't get tangled in things. Inside, don't get lost in emptiness. Be still, and confusion stops by itself. That's very helpful advice. Be still, and confusion stops by itself. You don't have to work at anything except just still and being still. And in Zen, it's called that still point. Realizing that still point, and then confusion sort of evaporates. So, to end with Master Dogen, and I'm going to read the first, just the beginning of the Genjo-kon, which is called Actualizing the Fundamental Point. It's the most famous central text, Genjo-kon. And it says, as all things are Buddha Dharma, there is delusion, realization, practice, and birth and death, and there are Buddhas and sentient beings. As all myriad things are without an abiding self, there is no delusion, no realization, no Buddha, no sentient beings, no birth and death. So even though there's Buddha Dharma and all things are Buddha Dharma, there is still sentient beings that are things in the world. Okay, that's the one side of form. And all these myriad things also means that there are no things and no separation. There's individuation and there's separation. They are equal. The point is, as the third patriarch said, don't prefer one over the other. Don't think that realizing emptiness is more important than realizing the 10,000 things. No, they're actually one. We can't even say more or less or equal. To even say equal is to miss the point. To even say equal, that they're equal, is to separate them. You can't say anything about it. And with that, I'll stop.